Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this past week has been filled with a bunch of announcements from Apple. Instead of having an October event, they decided to release different Apple updates every single day from Monday to Wednesday with new Mac. So I thought we'd go over what they've announced, some of the standout features and changes, and of course when to expect them as well. Now, starting on Monday, Apple actually announced an all-new iMac. The new iMac starts at $1299 with an M4. They all come with 16 gigs of RAM to start now, and the base CPU is an 8-core CPU, 8-core GPU, and 256 gigs of storage. If you step up to the next one, you get 4 ports and 10-core CPU and GPU, and the top option is $2,899. You can also get nano texture glass, 32 gigs of RAM, and 2 terabytes of storage. You have new shades of basically the same colors we had before with blue, purple, pink, orange, yellow, green, and silver. And depending on the configuration you get, you'll either get 2 ports or 4 ports. Just the base Mac has 2 ports. It's 2 times faster than an M1, has a new 12 megapixel front-facing camera that now supports desk view, and supports up to an 8K external display at 60 Hz with the M4 chip with 10-core CPU and GPU. All ports this time around are Thunderbolt 4 with an M4, where it was just 2 before. It also includes the keyboard and mouse or trackpad that gets USB-C that I showed the other day. So the same sort of setup, only USB-C with the function key in the bottom left now. So slight changes here, but not anything too big. Basically the same thing, not backlit, but all of the accessories, including the new Magic Mouse and trackpad, have USB-C. This is actually the Lightning version. Also, the Magic Mouse still has the port on the bottom. Now, probably the most exciting announcement this week was the new Mac Mini that they announced on Tuesday. The Mac Mini has been shrunk down to a very small size. It's now 2 inches tall, 5 inches deep and wide, as well as 1.5 pounds or 1.6 pounds for the M4 Pro. It's slightly larger than what we have with the Apple TV, but it also starts at $599 and again with 16 gigs of RAM. However, it tops out at a very expensive $4,699. That will give you 64 gigs of RAM, 8 terabytes of storage, and a 10 gigabit Ethernet adapter. So that's what it starts with and goes all the way up to that crazy price. It has an M4 10-core CPU or 10-core GPU, has 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports on the back with the base models, HDMI, gigabit Ethernet, 2 front USB-C ports, and a headphone jack. If you step up to the faster M4 Pro, that's a 12-core CPU and 16-core GPU, and that gives you 3 Thunderbolt 5 ports. So that's a big jump up as far as that goes. You can get a 10 gig Ethernet port, and again, 2 USB-C front with a headphone jack on the front. I can't wait to get my hands on it and check it out myself. A couple things to note is the bottom actually has a power button on it now. So instead of having it on the back sort of integrated, they've now put it on the bottom. I'm okay with this, as typically when you turn on a Mac, you don't really need to turn it off. You shouldn't be shutting them down every day. They just go to sleep, go idle, and they barely use any power when in idle. So no reason to shut them down unless you're installing an update, and then it just restarts on its own. The GPU is up to 2 times faster compared to the M1. It also has an AV1 decoder and supports up to 3 displays this year. So that's something that's new with the latest version of the Mac Mini. Again, I can't wait to get my hands on it, and both the iMac and Mac Mini are available in November on the 8th, so you can pre-order them now. Now, another thing they've done this year has to do with the MacBook Air. This isn't much of an update other than that the base model with the M3 processors, they did not bump them up to M4, but with the MacBook Air, they all start at 16 gigs of RAM now for the same price. So no changes there, basically the same color availability and everything else. However, the MacBook Pro got the biggest chipset update, just like we expected. So if we go over the options, the overall design is basically the same that we have already with the current MacBook Pro, but it starts with a 14-inch at $1,599 with the M4, the M4 Pro is $1,999, and the M4 Max is $3,199 to start. The top spec of the 14-inch is $7,049. With the 16-inch, like we have here, this is actually an M1 Max 16-inch, but it's $2,499 with the M4 Pro, $3,499 for the M4 Max, and it tops out at $7,349 for the top spec option with 8 terabytes of storage and 128 gigs of RAM. The M4 is offered as a base option with the 14-inch. It has the same amount of ports as the others, so you have 3 with 2 with a headphone jack, and then also you have another on the other side with an SD card reader and HDMI port. The M4 is a 10-core CPU and 10-core GPU. The M4 Pro is a 12 to 14-core CPU or 16 to 20-core GPU, depending on the option you pick. The M4 Pro can come with Thunderbolt 4 or Thunderbolt 5 ports, depending on your configuration, and it supports up to 2 external displays. 2 external displays up to 6K resolution at 60 Hz over Thunderbolt, or 1 external display with up to 6K resolution at 60 Hz over Thunderbolt, and 1 external display with 4K resolution at 144 Hz over HDMI. Or it can support 1 external display supported at 8K resolution at 60 Hz, or 1 external display at 4K 240 Hz over HDMI. The M4 Max gets the biggest bump up this time around with a 14-core CPU, 32-core GPU, Thunderbolt 5 ports, and it supports up to 4 external displays. 3 external displays with 6K resolution at 60 Hz over Thunderbolt, and 1 external display with up to 4K at 144 Hz over HDMI. Or you can do 3 external displays, 2 external displays with 6K at 60 Hz over Thunderbolt, and 1 external display with 8K at 60 Hz, 1 external display at 4K at 240 Hz, both of those over HDMI. We also have support for native DisplayPort 2.1 over USB-C, and all of the ports are the same this year, like I mentioned. So the ports are basically the same on the outside on most of the models, where we've got 3 Thunderbolt ports, whether they're 4 or 5. We also have an SD card reader, HDMI, and headphone jack, and also the new Pros support a nano texture display option. So if you want that nano texture display, they've brought it to the MacBook Pro as well as the iMac, and also 1000 nits of SDR sustained brightness. So that's something that's just going to let you see brighter displays in regular conditions, and 1600 HDR still. They both have 12 megapixel cameras. I forgot to mention that on the iMac, but we have a 12 megapixel camera at the top like we normally do, only 1080p, but it does allow for the desktop view option. So you can see your desktop view, share with someone else, and it has that desktop mode. One of the great things is the 14-inch now supports up to 22 hours of battery life, and the 16-inch up to 24 hours of battery life. So I can't wait to test that out. It should give us even more battery life. One other thing they noted is Cyberpunk and Assassin's Creed Shadows are coming to Mac as well. So this is all great news, and I think it was a great announcement as far as the overall weeks, but I was surprised that they didn't have an actual event. Last year they did, and there was hardly anything in it in about 30 minutes or so. However, I definitely think just the Mac Mini alone probably warranted an event, as it's a complete redesign. So it looks like we're going to have a great new Mac Mini, and maybe we'll have a new Pro display eventually. Maybe they're waiting for the Mac Pro and Mac Studio to be redone. But either way, we didn't see Tim Cook at all in any of these announcements. We saw John Turnus, so maybe he's the next CEO. But either way, I think it was an exciting week of announcements. And of course, as soon as I can get my hands on any of these, I'll test them out and share different details with you. Many people have asked me, when will we see iOS 18.2 Beta 2? Typically, with about the first 3 to 4 betas, Apple releases them on a bi-weekly schedule. So based on that, I would expect it maybe next Monday or Tuesday, where we'll get Beta 2 with some refinements, and hopefully more people get access to Image Playground and Genmoji. Many people requested access, but Apple said it would roll out over the next coming weeks. So hopefully we'll see that next week with some refinement, maybe some different things we didn't expect, and maybe the public beta as well. So that's everything with this event. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. And of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.